on? Check, check. You guys hear me okay? Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It's really inspiring to see this whole thing. This is actually my 6th Anarchapulco. I've been here since the very beginning, so it's interesting to see how this has been evolving. I remember when it started at the Copacabana Beach Hotel with just about 120 people, I think it was. And now we've evolved into this incredible environment where we got so many like-minded people here joining together and talking about how they can free themselves from the clutches of the tyrannical government. So I think it's an amazing thing. And also learning about how to evolve, which is something I want to talk about today, about how we can go about doing that. And I think it starts with recognizing that there is a problem and something needs to change. Now, I know that most of us in this room are well aware of the fact that an election is no remedy to the problems that we face today. Voting in new political parties really just changes the players, but it clearly doesn't change the game. So the question is, what are the problems, who are the players, and how do we change the game? Well, in my opinion, I think we need to expose the players, and from my experience up in Canada, the biggest MVP player on Team Statism is Justin Trudeau. Did you guys know he is the world's most, I suppose, famous and powerful feminist, and he's actually a trans rights activist, even though he himself is not trans, although these days you really don't know, and he's destroying Canada, but not in a good way. From what I can tell, the global powers that ought not to be are essentially using him and Canada as a blueprint for the rest of the world, as an example of how to dismantle the family unit and Western Christian standards and values in an effort to be able to set up an eventual global, godless, new world order. So today I want to provide a few examples of how I'm seeing this play out up in Canada, and most importantly, what we can do about it. So let's start with the head, and Justin Trudeau, the world's most famous and powerful feminist and trans rights activist. And let me be clear, I have no problem with trans people whatsoever. In fact, I didn't have a problem with trans people until Justin Trudeau came along and introduced something called Bill C-16, where he would force me to have to use someone's preferred gender pronoun, and if I don't, I can be fined. I can even potentially be thrown in prison for this. So if a girl wants to be referred to as a boy, and I refuse to call little Sally, who wants to be Billy, a she or a he, I can be arrested and even thrown in prison for this. And this actually applies to our own children. I'm actually in the middle of working on a case in Canada with a father of a young 14-year-old girl who's currently going through the transitional phases of becoming a boy. She started to experience this gender dysphoria in school. She told her teachers. The teachers told the counselors. The counselor told the doctors. The doctors suggested she go ahead with the transitioning. This all happened unbeknownst to the father, and he is certainly against this. And the courts have ordered him that he is not allowed to refer to his own daughter as a she. He is not allowed to call her by the birth name that he gave her when she was born. And if he does, he can be arrested. In fact, that's exactly what happened when this man referred to his daughter as a she. He was arrested without warrant, and he was charged with something called family violence. Now, I just had some new information. Just 2 days ago, this man, I've been referring to this guy as a BC father for a year and a half now since I've been covering this case. And that's because the court has placed a gag order on this man. He's not allowed to talk about this issue anywhere. But he has just informed me 2 days ago that he is going to violate the gag order and grant me an exclusive one-on-one sit-down interview with this man. I can now tell you, his name is Rob Hoogland. He's going to defy the court order, and he's going to go ahead and speak his mind about what's happening to his child. He just called me literally 1 hour ago to inform me that since I've been in Mexico, he says, I know I told you I'd give you the exclusive, but some other journalists wanted to interview me, and I went ahead and did it. I said, that's great, you're getting the message out. A lady named Laura Lynn Thompson just interviewed him a couple of days ago, and as of 2 hours ago, the police just showed up at her door because she posted this video on YouTube, demanding that she remove it. We're beyond these people getting messages from YouTube or Google saying you have to do this. Cops just showed up at her door to inform her that she has to remove this video because it's in violation of the gag order. That's how bad things are getting in Canada, and it's because it's a serious attack on the family unit. That's what we're seeing. The family itself is a small, self-contained governing unit, and it's an essential foundation of society which has to be destroyed in order for their global, godless New World Order to be achieved. And that's what Trudeau's agendas are leading to. It's because of these things that we now have this guy, Jessica Wax My Balls or Else Yanif. Have you guys heard of this guy? This is an individual who just as far back as 2 years ago, he went by the name Jonathan. He's recently been transitioning, and he's now suing some ladies who are the owners of some beauty salons in Vancouver for refusing to give him a Brazilian wax job. These ladies are not instructed and familiar with how to deal with male genitalia. This man is a pre-op trans, and he's suing these people for discrimination. He's lost those cases, but he's currently trying to sue some more beauty salons for refusing to give him a wax job. And that's the kind of policies, the things that these policies lead to, that Justin Trudeau essentially is responsible for. I went to this court hearing of this individual, and upon introducing myself to see if I could get an interview, he flipped out. He called 911. He pulled a fire alarm in an elevator, and his mother assaulted me. I posted the entire interaction on Twitter, and I got hundreds of thousands, about 500,000 views, thousands and thousands of shares, and I was banned from Twitter for 2 weeks for saying that a man is not a woman, and Jessica Yanif is a man who shouldn't be discriminating against these women and forcing them to touch his genitals. For that, I was blocked from Twitter for about 2 weeks. And if that wasn't bad enough, guys, Canada is also home of one of the world's most famous drag queens. This is an individual, he performs in Montreal, Canada, and he just also so happens to be an 8-year-old boy. At least that's how old he was when I started covering this story. He's now 11, and in Montreal, Canada, it's entirely acceptable for a young child to dress sexually and to dance provocatively in front of other men, many of whom have been sexually abused themselves as children and are literally on sex offender lists. This is entirely acceptable in Canada. But a lot of people say, guys, relax. It's just dress up. It's just fun and games. There's nothing to worry about here. Well, I warned about this being a slippery slope back when C16 was introduced, and now here we are with child drag queens. We have fathers who are being arrested with something called family violence for referring to his own daughter as a she. We have guys like Jessica Wax My Balls or Else Yanif who want to force other women to touch his genitals, and if they don't, they will sue him for discrimination. He'll sue them. So you might be asking, what on earth is going on up there in Canada? It almost seems like a feminist trans rights activist infiltrated the political movement, worked his way all the way up to the top, and is now successfully working towards destroying the family unit and turning the patriarchy into an enemy. That is, the traditional family unit, the moral and standard, the traditional family unit, the moral and ethical standards of Jesus Christ, private property, and capitalism. Now, thankfully, I'm surrounded by like-minded people here who fully understand that democracy is just the deception that we are somehow progressing just because we vote, when in fact democracy is really just like any other version of communism, and just like communism, this erosion begins with the family. Parents aren't raising their children anymore. The state is doing that. And the public schooling is, of course, the indoctrination of our youth. And now, when the youth rebel against the establishment, like Greta How Dare You Thunberg, what they're really calling for is bigger, badder establishment. Because children are, despite the bad cliche, the future, and the state knows this. And as the state has eroded the family through these mandatory indoctrination centers, they've also attacked the family structure by further sending women into the workforce and further diminishing a child's experience with the governance of a patriarchal family. And on top of that, the state also created a welfare state, which promotes dependency on bureaucracy and taxpayer money rather than the family tree. So, for example, if a woman is pregnant out of wedlock, a single woman, and she has those broader family foundations, she can rely on her parents, her aunts and uncles, her siblings, and the child would essentially be better off for that. However, with the welfare state, the mom becomes dependent on financial benefits, and the children end up being raised by other children in government schools that are run up by a bunch of bureaucrats. So through direct state action and through corporate state propaganda and culture, the powers that ought not to be have dismantled the family and replaced it with their cultural Marxism. And that is one of the biggest problems I see that we're facing, really, is cultural Marxism, which seeks the erosion of Western values like Christianity and the family. So this is a really big problem right now. Instead of these intellectuals taking up arms and physically fighting the state for power, what we have now are these Western communist intellectuals taking up high positions in universities and public schooling. And throughout the 20th century, these groups praised actual tyrannies like the Soviet Union and China. They militarized feminism. They invented political correctness. They policed the language. They came up with this idea of a microaggression, which claims that the very language we use is by default racist, sexist, and violent. So the real tyranny, according to these Western intellectuals, is not the bloodshed coming at the ends of the communist guns. No. It's the West and its bourgeoisie culture. So there's a cultural march through the institutions that I think we're going to have to reverse, that's going to allow for a restoration of the traditional values of Western civilization. That is the very teachings of Christ. Love your neighbor. Don't lie and steal and murder and cheat. Now, the only way we can do this realistically is to restore the institutions of private property that recognizes the individual as a political sovereign for all ages and genders and races. But one does not go about this for voting in a political party. I think most people in this room know that. So what's the answer then? Well, I think what we need to work towards, in my opinion, is a private property order where all adult actions are voluntary and consensual. Now, of course, this isn't the only solution. In fact, it poses a bit of a problem in a culture that has already undergone a cultural Marxist revolution. So I would say a successful libertarian anarchist revolution is going to require that we reverse this long march through the institutions. Otherwise, we're really just leaving the door open for something much, much worse to replace it. But that does not mean we have to work within the system in order to reverse the damage. I feel that what needs to be done is the patriarchic family needs to be resurrected and defended. Christian values need to be re-embraced because governance begins at the local level, but even smaller than community, it begins with the family. So the patriarchy, I believe, deserves our respect because all of us have in one way or another benefited from that system. And if you destroy that, you essentially destroy civilization itself. You know the Bible said to go forth and multiply, right? And I know that just the mention of that word in a conference such as this may have a few people squirming in their chairs, and that's totally fine. I get that. I've been there myself. But the fact is, whether you like it or not, Christ is the very foundation of our Western civilization. And the more the West is moving away from him and away from his ways, the worse things are getting, guys. So as I said, what I think we need moving forward is a private property order where all adult actions are voluntary and consensual, coupled with Christian values being re-embraced. Otherwise, this cultural Marxist revolution that has taken place is going to prevent a truly successful libertarian anarchist revolution from happening, guys, because it's not good enough to just do away with the state. the state is made up of human beings. That's all of us. And I think in order to solve this problem, we're going to have to work on ourselves individually on the inside if we ever want to have any kind of hope of changing this world, to be honest. So those are my ideas fundamentally on how we can work towards evolving not only the West to get away from the way we've been going, but the rest of the world. As I said, Canada is being used as a blueprint right now, so I just wanted to bring this information to your attention, let you know it's going on in Canada, it's going to be used elsewhere, and unless we start to look back to the traditions and the values that the West was founded on, it's going to continue to go in what I believe to be a negative direction. So those are some of my ideas, guys, on how I think we can evolve in the way that we need to. I'm going to be here for the rest of the evening and until tomorrow, till about 6 p.m. If anybody wants to talk to me about how we can go about practically doing these things, on a day-to-day basis, please don't hesitate to approach me. Let's talk about it tonight. Let's talk about it tomorrow. And that's what I think is important about conferences like this, is really engaging with like-minded people, learning from one another, helping one another. So if you guys want to learn more about how we can practically work towards making this world a better place with the ideals and the suggestions that I have, please come talk to me tonight or tomorrow before I leave. And that's it, guys. Those are my ideas on how we can evolve. Thank you so much for taking the time to come listen to me today. Now, I'm not sure if we're open to a Q&A, but if you want to, we can. So we got about 10 minutes left, it looks. So if anybody has any questions, I don't know if they have a mic, but... What's the website? Well, the website is Press for Truth, pressfortruth.ca. You type in Press for Truth on YouTube, you'll find me. So yeah, it's a Canadian site, pressfortruth.ca. Thanks for the question. Anyone else? Yes? You know what? I think he absolutely was one of the foremost amazing anarchists who, really taught the world about the oppressive clutches of the government. I mean, the only time that man got angry is when he flipped the tables of the money changers in the temple, you know what I mean? This is the man who provided the example for us to learn how we got to do these things. As I said, it's not good enough to just abolish the state. We inherently have some issues on the inside that we have to deal with this. He showed how to do that. And in fact, the first 4 books of the New Testament, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they were really just eyewitness accounts of how he lived his life. How did he deal with certain situations? What did he do when somebody presented him with a problem? How did he react to things? I think it's important we read those 4 books and we learn the example that he showed on how we can do what I think everybody in this room wants, the non-aggression principle. It's essentially the golden rule, and he provided the perfect example. So if you're not familiar about the stories of how he dealt with situations, I'd encourage you to read the first 4 books of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Anyone else? Couple more seconds. Anyone?
What do you know about Justin Castro Trudeau?
Justin Castro Trudeau. If anybody's not familiar with what he's talking about, there is a very convincing conspiracy that Justin Trudeau is actually the son of Fidel Castro. The reason why this actually adds up is when you see the pictures, they're very, very similar at different ages. We do know that his mother was in Cuba at the time that he was conceived. Ah, yes, thank you. The candle from James's presentation is Justin Trudeau holding a nice little goat. Isn't that lovely? Thank you for that, James. I forget where I was with that, but yes, Castro. The mother was actually in Cuba at the time that he was conceived. It's well known that she was very promiscuous. It's a fact. She slept with the Rolling Stones, for example. She's the type of woman who it wouldn't be a very big stretch of the imagination to think that that's possible. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and say that it is emphatically true. I don't know. But the photos are pretty convincing. There was.
So were the principles being advanced by us at Castro Jr.
Right. Good point. He said so are the aspirations are following through his son, if that's who he indeed is. Yes.
Here.
What alternate media sites are you going to?
Good question. We're facing a serious problem right now with censorship, with shadow banning. My channel's being completely demonetized 100%. They don't want me to earn any kind of revenue or be able to get any kind of reach on that platform anymore. It's really shooting itself in the foot. It's a dying platform. So I'm currently diversifying my video sharing platform portfolio into a whole number of different new sites that are popping up all the time. Blockchain-based sites that are decentralized. I'm currently on float.app, Flote.app. I'm on pocketnet.app. I'm on steemit.com/pressfortruth. I'm on DTube. I am on minds.com/pressfortruth. I am on BitChute. There's probably a number of them that I'm forgetting right now, but I'm really kind of not have all my eggs in one basket at this point, so to speak. I'm really trying to diversify in the hopes that, one of these good guys who support free speech and who don't censor their content creators and who have algorithms that will actually allow you to see the content of the guy you're following, I'm getting involved with those kind of platforms. And as I said, I think I'm in about a dozen of them now. It's funny, when I post a video now, I've got like 15 tabs open on my computer where I have to, it's added quite a lot to my daily workflow, but it's important to get onto these other platforms now as a hedge before they pull the plug and flip the switch. I know they're going to do this to my channel. It's really just a matter of time. So if you guys have come to appreciate the information that I present at Press for Truth, you better know the days are coming when I'm just going to be gone from YouTube. And you're going to be like, oh, I guess he's not producing anymore. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. Well, no, I'm going to be continuing to produce videos on a daily basis. It's just going to be on another platform. So I would strongly encourage you guys, if you're not on any of these ones, check the links in the description of any one of my videos, and you'll find all the links to all the various platforms I'm on. Anyone else? A couple seconds. We good?
I think so.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.